Alrighty, I want to show you how to repair rusty metal here. Specifically, I'm working on this core support that come off this 2000 GMC Safari. Earlier video, I'll post a link to it, I showed the removal of this. At the end of the video, I made the comment about hopefully they made an aftermarket or could find a good use. Well, no and no. So we are going to work on repairing this. Like I say, I'm going to start in the middle, try to build this middle first, and then work my way out there. But we'll be sure to include some videos and instructions as we go. Thank you. Alrighty, now how I'm going to start on repairing this is this straight section in the bottom front. Before it goes into this curved area on both sides is 24 inches. So that's what we're going to work on first. Bending a piece of, actually two pieces of metal, and I'm going to weld them together. And the reason of the 12 inches wide, I have this little homebrew sheet metal bending brake I made to use my shop pressing. It's 12 inches wide. So like I say, that just makes it easier to work with, but that's going to be our starting point. And I measured a piece out here. There's the 12 inches, and I'm making it 9 inches wide. It's actually, I measured all the bends in it there. It's be like 7.5, but you can always trim off, but you can add on, and you're going to lose some in the bending process. Alrighty, took here. I'm going to put the bend at around 15/16, just the 1/16 under an inch, and I marked it each side. Now I'm going to take, and I'll show you a little demonstration of this. I'll put the camera in the tripod of bending with the homebrew sheet metal bending brake and the shop press. Alrighty, we're going to take and bring this down. Next, I want to get that lined up. There's like an edge on this where it's bending. Line that up to this nice straight bend. Alright, that should be about her. Release it. And there we got our bend in it there. And if you look, this is sort of a video in itself, this contraption I made. But you can look, that's got like a pointy edge on it, and then it comes down into this, is how it bends the metal. Alright, we put that first bend in it, and then I took it and a pair of vice grips here just to temporarily hold it. And I marked where there's still enough of this left. We need to bend this again. Okay, we put the second bend in it, which I think you can see here where we're sort of going on this. Now we have to bend it back in towards the rear of the core support, and that's going to be, I measured here what's left, 1 3/4 inches, and same over here, and we're going to take and bend it that way. Okay, there's our next bend in it. You can see, and it's going to starting to make a little sense here. I think you see the deal, and then that's going to make one more. I'm going to weld them together before moving on, and then we're going to come around and fix from the rear in this section. Actually, this is going to be fixed in sections. Now these, when we get to those, are going to be a little more challenging. Okay, thanks for watching so far. Okay, what I'm going to do next in this is take drill these spot welds and remove this bracket that the bottom of the radiator sat in. It's reusable in itself, although the metal underneath of it's rusty and it's going to be replaced. Now before doing that, whatever you're working on, now if you're working on one of these vans, great. Here's the work done for you. I measured from up here to the top edge of that radiator bracket, and it's 12 3/4 on this side. And on this one here, it is the 1/16 inch lower. It's 12 13/16. Want to take note of those measurements because what I'm doing next, I'm going to be cutting probably from about around in here. Lay the light down. Cutting this out right about in here. Down through here, this edge. And working down into about here. Sort of going to get some here so I can start mounting the front pieces too that I made earlier. And on that, in my case, this is 10 inches wide. I'm going to cut the piece of repair metal. After I cut it, I'll show you. And it's going to be 16 inches from the top of the core support down to the bottom. And then we'll work on getting the shape in that cut in. But for now, I'm going to drill these, cut my metal, and we'll show you the next step. Alrighty, we got our piece of metal cut. Next piece for fabricating and bent. Like I say, this is one where I showed you I got the spot welds drilled on that radiator support bracket. And this is going to sit down in here. You see you have the bend in here, down here. This was 2 1/4 inches. And then the next one, and you got to bend it from the opposite side, was 7/8. Now what I'm going to do carefully is trim a little bit of this, because I want to be able to slide this down, and then as carefully with what little's left of this core support, draw around and cut it out on the curved shape that the core support was. Say yours needs, maybe you'll need less repair, maybe you'll need more. Of course, if you need much more, you probably will have to work harder than I did and try to find one. Alrighty, took and vice gripped this piece here temporarily so I could go around the front side of it and mark where to cut it. This is sort of a little guesswork because this is fairly rusty, but I'm trying to get the curve as it comes up around the bottom of the core support. Now I drew this first line. That's sort of the rough shape of it, but I'm going to cut it back about 1/2 inch back farther, because after it's cut, I'm going to take a pair of pair of vice grips, or perhaps a crescent wrench works sometime, and put a little wedge on this, bend it around, because that's going to bend back when you put these pieces on. Once we get to that we already made, that's going to be able, you'll be able to weld through up this, that'll be the lip you'll be welding to. Already I did the cut around where I drew it earlier. I'm going to take a pair of these and try to bend around this, sort of demonstrate here some. Take them again and we'll work this in here. And like I say, try to get a fairly even bend around it. It don't have to be perfect per se. Now this curves around this is getting where we might have to work with this crescent wrench once. You want a pair of crescent wrench that closes the whole way tight, and then we'll try working it in here. There we go. And there. Go back up to here. So you need enough of an edge when that other piece we can weld it back together. Okay, and then that's sort of, I'm going to work with it some more, sort of the general drift and just patience, and I'll keep working with it. Alrighty, this is the piece just cut and bent. I marked where this rectangular shaped hole is. You could let it solid. I just figured I'd take the extra time and cut it out. I took and drew a line with the marker to follow down around the curve of that. And then I'm going to take and drill the spot welds out till where we're going to cut it on the other side. Then I marked it from the other side where it metal set, right here. Now when I take this off, I want to let about a 1/2 inch measure down and cut down below, so when it comes time to weld this, there's something to weld to. The same with this edge here. I want to take and about a 1/2 inch in, cut it so you have something to weld to. And this is the piece we made earlier. It's eventually going to end up coming down when we add the piece to the middle, so you can have something to weld to. Alright, this is sort of, then this in here is going to need some fabrication yet, but I'm going to for right now work on cutting out what I just said and get this ready to weld in, and that can be worked with here when we start fabricating around this curve, which is going to be probably about the trickiest part on this. Alrighty, we cut that piece out as I was working on. Now what I did right now is I measured from the top here down to where it bolts to the subframe, and I took note. You can write it on paper, but I figured this is good. I shouldn't lose it. If I lose it, well, I don't have core support. It's 17 7/8 inches to the subframe and 13 inches from the side, measuring from here down to your hole. Then what we're going to do, I'm going to flip this over. You had to give in and go get the sawhorses out. I was getting tired of working on the ground. This is getting involved, but we're going to take. Okay. And I'm going to cut this corner out, but let it intact as much as I can. I'm going to take my cutoff tool and just cut along this line I drew on it. And then down right before it starts to curve in here. That again we still have to work on. That's going to be a little tricky, but we're going to, this is the next step on it, at least how I'm doing it. Okay, next I'm going to take and make a piece from here down into where I'd already made these. I started to a little bit. I have a metal shrinker and stretcher. I'm going to take and try to bend these in it, and I'll give you a demonstration. If you don't have one, I bought this at Harbor Freight about 2 years ago. I don't remember the price. It was on a Labor Day weekend. I know that. It was a 25% off coupon. Sort of was my inspiration on buying it. There we go. We got you in the tripod, and see if I can demonstrate here. And just keep working. It's not, takes a good bit of muscle, but I think you see where we're going on it. I'll show you the completed project. But you see I'm starting to get it to bend, shrink it. Already we got this piece roughly fabricated. I took and cut about 1 inch off the width after when I was showing you there. I was bending it in a shrinker stretcher. And then I took and bent this edge on it. And then I went back to the shrinker stretcher. And, I mean, it's not beautiful perhaps, but it's roughly the shape. I'm going to take and, like I said, unfortunately I have to do this in 2 pieces. Do for this outside around here. That's what we're going to be working on next. You can see roughly, I mean, it's a long ways to go, but sort of the progress we made coming across the front here. Eventually get everything made and welded together. It'll be a whole core support again. Alrighty, earlier we made this piece, which, like I say, I used the metal shrinker stretcher. I clamped it down and sort of used the remains of the core support there for, used the hammer and dolly method. And now I fabricated, this wasn't as bad, the lower part of it. And I'm going to weld this all together then, and laid this piece of metal over top and drew the shape of it. I'm going to cut it out, and this is what's going to connect our two pieces together. It's a shame with that metal shrinker stretcher, but an inch in's all it'll bend. I couldn't have just made these bigger that they would have made it without that. But that is next step. Alrighty, got this curved piece of metal cut that I drew the lines on. I'm going to take and weld it to this. Now I want to do it off the core support after I get it tacked in place, but what else I want to do here, I will show you. Alrighty, I want to plug weld it. Along with when I'm done, I want to weld the seam, but what I'm going to do, if you don't have one of these, you can use a drill, but I have one of these punch flange tools, and I'm going to take the punch side of it. Later on we'll be flanging too, and just take it, narrow operated tool, and put a hole about once every about an inch to 2 inches. I mean about 1.5 inches, 2 inches is fine. And then do that on the other side. If you don't have one of these, you can, it's slower, use a drill and about a 1/4 inch drill bit. Here's the piece with the punches holes in it laid over top. Now all I want to do for right now, just probably like right there, I put a little weld here, probably like each corner and one in the middle, enough that it'll hold together, and then I'm going to take it back off of here. This is just so I get the right shape, and then I'll do the plug welds and that off this, and that pretty much forms our curved section of the core support. Ready? We got our tacked spot here, there, and 3 more on the other side. Now I'm going to take and pull this off. Should be able to finish this up in the bench vise. And this should stay all together. This should be temporarily pieced together as one piece. Alrighty, I have a clamp down here before the first plug weld. If you've never done this before, start with your wire welder right in the middle and just work out towards the outside of the hole. You want to clamp good so and tight on both sides of it. I'll do one and show you the side look from the front and the back, and then we'll go do the rest of them. Alrighty, there's our plug weld from the side it was welded on. And the back side, that's when you see you got that no real burn through, but the nice darkened area. It's made good penetration and it's holding. You can also see where I put those spots earlier there just for temporary tacking. And we're going to complete welding this, and we will show you the completed product. Alrighty, we got this welded, our plug welds, and then I welded down the seams. I'm going to take and grind it here when I get farther along, but for right now that's not really that important. And like I say, from the back side, I did get a little bit, this thin metal's hard to weld, did get a little burned through, but it'll work. Welder I'm using there, I never did mention, is a Hobart 140. And of course I was running the low setting. Great welder if you're in the market for one. There's other good welders, but the price was right on this when I bought it, so that sort of sold me on it. Alrighty, next step, here we come. Alrighty, I put a flange around this piece. This is the same tool I made the holes with. The punch flange tool is just the opposite side. And I'm going to take and weld. This sits down in here nice. I'll clamp it up and show you good before I weld it, but we're going to weld this together. We're going to start making one big piece out of many pieces. Got this in the bench vise clamped up. I'm going to run a couple tacks of weld, one or so here, probably one there on the other side. And then I'm going to just make sure it's lining up, and then we're going to weld the whole thing. Alrighty, took and made the piece for the left side of the core support, the upper one. Now I did this a little different than the last side. I cut a little slosh in it with my 3-inch cutter tool, and after I did the initial bending here on that shrinker stretcher I showed you, I took a rubber mallet and used the core support for, like I say, a hammer and dolly. And here we fabricated this bottom edge, and it's going to sit roughly like that. And I'm going to take, same as I did on the other side there earlier, I'm going to take and lay it, again it's a shame they won't butt up, not enough room, lay the straight piece, cut the shape out around, and take and weld it to it. Ready, cut this piece, just like the other side we did, punch the holes in it, and we're going to tack it a couple places where I know it's positioned right. And then I want to take it and do like I did on this side, put it in the bench vise and weld it all into one piece. And then after that, we're going to be taking, which we'll update in video, doing like here, going to be assembling this all into one large section. And slowly and surely, Humpty Dumpty is, I think, going back together again. Alright, just got done welding the other side, the left, like we did over here. I'm going to do the same thing I did here. Take this, I put the flange in it with the tool I showed you, and I'm going to put a couple tack welds in it. And then eventually we're going to weld this, but first I'm going to get this fitted nice, make sure it still fits good, and slowly we're making it one piece. Alrighty, we got this tacked into place. I laid it basically where it's going to sit on the core support. And it's all one big piece now. I said I'm going to finish welding the places where it was put together. And again, if you have a larger bending break in this situation, you want to do this all as one piece, that's great, but I showed you the reason earlier in the video. My homemade sheet metal bending brake and shop press is only 12 inches wide, although I think it's more time consuming. It makes it easier to do, but now we do have one large piece. Alrighty, we got this welded together. I'm going to take now, pull this out of our way. Good tight fit. Okay, and I marked. I'm going to cut this out a little bit, let a little extra. Here's where it actually sits the edge, but I'm going to cut it to the inside. And same over here. And we're going to get rid of this whole rusty mess here in the middle of the lower core support. Okay, there's that center section of that core support cut out. There it is. I'm going to lay it to the side here. Shouldn't serve any purpose. Oh, it is going to have one more purpose we'll get to down the road. That's right, yeah, I'll hang on to that for a little bit. And the fabricated piece, again, I left enough here, should just lay right across there in place of the rusty mess. Okay, that's sort of the next step. Now we're going to turn it over and work on the other side. Okay, before moving on, I'm going to get rid of where this was extra plated, where it bolted the subframe. And yes, we will be adding thick metal over top our repair, but first we're going to fix it with the 18 gauge sheet metal. But I'm going to try to get these off, drill the spot welds, and try to save as much behind as can. It still needs some rust repair behind these, but to start the piece I had already made in, they're just in the way right now. And like I say, just want to take and do that. Big thing is get everything made before you end up with a big pile of rust that you don't know what went where. You don't have no basically forms or nothing to go by, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. Alrighty, we got this off the passenger side. I actually did the spot weld, and that piece of metal was too thick. The spot weld cutter wouldn't go through it. I'll show you what I mean. And you only can cut down the here, so I went in a ways, realized that wasn't working, and I just took the angle grinder and just worked in between, saved as much as the metal as I could, and then just cut them with that. Now this other side, I'm going to take like over here, measure a 1/2 inch down from this curved piece, and I want to just cut this out with the angle grinder. And the passenger side was rusted away, but this one was okay. This little bracket that the fender bolts to, I drilled the spot weld, and I think that can actually be just re-welded to a new piece. It doesn't really, like I say, just the fender holds against it, and I think that'll still live yet. But the other one, you have to fabricate that, and I just cut through it when I took this out, the bottom edge of the core support, because it wasn't nothing left of it. All right, did get this off. As I said, I just took the angle grinder and just carefully pry it up a little bit with the fine chisel. And then you could work under this and cut those loose. I mean, this piece of metal is going to be getting replaced in here where it's rusty, but till we make the piece of metal, I want to keep as much as possible so you know the shape. And same when you cut these out. Now, if yours is rustier than this, which hopefully not, but hang on to them, because this is going to be used to make the pattern for the new pieces that's going in. Now, if I hold it the right way, and before we go on, I already did the driver's side, but the passenger side, I'm going to take and drill these spot welds and get rid of this where the radiator sat. I could say the mount for it. Before I do that, like, it probably isn't different, but I'm going to measure from this top edge of this core support down to the top edge of this, just to be sure it is the same as the passenger side. Alrighty, I drilled that radiator bracket off the spot welds and marked it left and put it to the side. That, in my case, is reusable. And temporarily, this piece we cut out, clamped it in, and put this assembled, the main part across the low core support that holds it together in place. And next we're going to make from right here down in this. In my case, it's going to be, I measured there, I'm going to make it about 11 inches by 9 inches. And that's going to be our next step. I'm going to right now go cut my piece of metal 9 by 11 inches, and we will be back again. Next step. Okay, just cut that piece of metal. And what I did next was got down underneath and drew 2 lines. One is where it's going to try to bend the lip on at the weld to, following the contour. This, and then the other one, excuse me, the first one is where we're going to cut it off, and then the second one, follow that as good as we can and bend an edge on it. Okay, that's next step. Before I cut it, that was sort of a little confusing looking upside down at it. But this one here I marked is the cut one, and then in between here is where we're going to try to bend it. But cut this off if you're following along, but do not do this bend yet, because before we do that, it's going to have to go in the bending brake and do the bend the vertical down in the piece of metal. Okay, we cut that off as marked. Then we're going to take, I marked here, bend it down through 2 1/4 inches in, it looks like, and focus or not. And like I say, put a 90-degree bend in it. Alrighty, finally got this piece fabricated. We did the first bend, and I put the one in here. Took and clamped it down. Now this side had a little sense of humor from the other side. You can see on this, it was nice and straight coming down here. But now on this one, I marked this before I pulled it off with the marker. Yeah, because I sort of used the remains of the core support for a bending brake. But there, I got this little dimple in here as good as I could. And like I say, we're going to take and cut down below here around the edge, and soon we can start putting pieces actually to the core support. Alrighty, this is going to be part 2 of a 3 series video. Part 1 was the removal of the core support on the van, and here we have fabricated the lower piece of this core support, which is laying behind me, and in here. In the next video, we're going to pick up and start putting pieces together. I hope you enjoyed this, and again, look for part 3.